Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another one of my Dota 2 hero guides. Today we're going to be taking a look at Crystal Maiden. So CM is a support hero, usually a 5-position hero, and as such, it's kind of more important to understand the 5 role generally, like how to pool and what to do in general in the game to be effective at this role, but there are specifics about Crystal Maiden, like all the other 5 positions, that allow you to play her better. So, Crystal Maiden specifically, as an intelligence hero, is extremely squishy, and also she's one of the slowest heroes in the game. So what you're going to need to do to play this hero effectively is to learn positioning. Positioning is the #1 thing on this hero, and it's very hard for people that are new to the game to play this hero without feeding. So pretty much you want to be playing the hero in that weird fine line between feeding and being ineffective, because if you're being too aggressive, you're putting yourself in a bad position, you're going to feed and you're going to die and you're not going to be effective because you're not going to get your spells off and you're going to give the enemy team gold. But if you're staying back too much, you're being too passive, you're not getting in there because you're afraid of dying and feeding, well then you're not going to be using your spells. You're not going to be effective in the team fight, and you're pretty much just going to be a non-factor overall. Yes, you're not feeding gold, but you're also just useless. You just make your team kind of 4v5. So that's the fine line that you have to play with Crystal Maiden, and I can kind of show you a little bit of how to do that when we look at her abilities and in the game. So now that you understand the basics of Crystal Maiden and how to play her, how to think about her, we can take a look at her abilities. So now that we understand Crystal Maiden in general and what her weaknesses are that allow her to, be taken advantage of and how you kind of want to play the fine line with this hero, we can take a look at her abilities and what makes her effective in the game. So first, we can take a look at Crystal Nova. This is her Q ability, and it's pretty simple. She's a very quintessential hero in terms of she has a very basic kit, but it still can be very powerful. So what Crystal Nova does is it gives this little AoE here, and in that AoE, it does damage, and it also applies a slow. As you see, it's maxed out right now, so Axe is slowed there. So really, the key to this is obviously you want to use it when you're ganking, in a team fight, to do damage, those kinds of things, but especially in the laning stage, what you want to use this ability for is 2 things. You want to be able to hit both the offlaner and the support at the same time, obviously because you do twice as much damage when you hit both of them, but you also want to be using this ability to secure ranged creep last hits. So a lot of times, if you notice, if you're a carry player, or even if you're not, if you're a support player, the carry will drag the creeps back, and basically the ranged creeps will be dying, both the enemies and your ranged creep will be dying at the same time. So what you want to do is you want to use this ability, like I did there, to secure that ranged creep before the enemy can deny it. And that's usually if your carry is not in a good position to get that last hit. Because, the carry doesn't want to walk up. Maybe he's against a very aggressive offlaner, or both the enemy team's heroes are standing right there. He doesn't want to walk up in melee range and hit that creep. So what you can do to make sure that they don't deny it is just spam them out. One, you do damage to them if they're standing right next to it. But 2, you can secure that creep. So just know that that is a very, very good way to use Crystal Nova, and you also want to be trying to, as much as possible, using it on both heroes in the lane so that you can get the most effective damage out with this spell. Now, second, we have Frostbite here, and Frostbite's pretty simple. You cast it on a hero, and it basically roots them in place. Now, with this ability, it's pretty much a stun. Now, root is a little bit different than a stun. I'm not going to get into all the specifics of that because you can still cast BKB and stuff outside of root. But where stunning, you can't do anything. But still, it's basically a stun. It lasts for a little while, and it's a good, stun that does damage and locks people in place. It's pretty simple. So if we cast it on this Axe here, the Axe can't go anywhere, can't do anything. Now, the one thing to note about this spell is that if you cast it on creeps, it lasts 10 seconds, as it says here, lasts 10 seconds on creeps level 6 or lower. So basically, you can use this ability to farm the jungle. Now, I would advise you to not do this very much, but it is something that you can do and you should keep in mind when it is appropriate. Now, I wouldn't say go jungle CM or, steal farm from people, but it's something that can allow her to farm larger creeps or camps or those kinds of things when it is appropriate. So just keep that in mind. Now, her third skill, Arcane Aura, pretty simple. The higher the level it is, the more mana regen you give to your team. So it's basically a global mana regen aura that allows your team to just have basic sustain for their mana across the entire map. Now, there's a bonus for yourself, so you get even more mana regen, and then as such, she usually buys, Tranquil Boots, because now you have basically unlimited mana and health, and you never really have to go back to base. But this is one thing that can be extremely good if, you have a lineup that lacks mana sustain, usually doesn't like to buy mana regen items, or maybe they have a mana regen item that they can go, but they'd rather go something else. Well, if you have a CM on your team, you basically, have that free regen there for you, which is really, really good for your team, both in laning stage to spam out more spells, but just in general on the map during the game. And so that's pretty much her passive aura there. And then the Freezing Field, her ultimate, is pretty simple as well. In an AoE, you cast it. You pretty much stand here and you channel this ability, and it will basically rain down snow in a pretty big AoE and do damage for the duration of the channel. Now, one thing I do want to mention right now this might get changed, but her Ag's Shard actually allows you to move very slowly, I'll say, but you can move and cast spells while you're channeling your ultimate. So it can be very, very good to get this shard if you can afford it. Now, the last thing that I'll say about this ultimate and her abilities in general is that Freezing Field also gives you a lot of armor. It says bonus 20 armor. So, in the past, you'd cast your ultimate, you'll be channeling there, but you'd get killed instantly or something by a carry. Well, now, we can come over here, we'll get this axe. We'll just spawn another axe, actually. So let's say the axe is, the axe is attacking us. Well, the axe is level 1, so maybe we'll level enemy to max. The axe is doing a pretty good amount of right-click damage. Well, here I can cast this. The axe does a significantly less amount of right-click damage now because I'm channeling my ultimate. And obviously, now that I have the shard, I can run away. But pretty much that is one thing to consider when casting Freezing Field is, let's say you have a right-click carry that's going on you in the early game, or mid-game, you're 6 and the carry might be 10 or something. Well, they're trying to click you down. Well, you can just basically sit there, stand on top of them, press Freezing Field, and now it's like almost impossible for them to kill you without magic damage. So that's just something to consider with this hero, is that the ultimate does give you a lot of armor, and so it can make you very tanky. Now, the two things that I want to say, and this is just supports in general, I'll probably go over this every single game or every single guide for supports, is that you want to be buying these two items all the time. Especially on this hero, Force Staff, which pushes you forward, and Glimmer Cape, which temporarily makes you go invisible and gives you bonus magic resistance. These items are so good for CM, especially because, as I said before, CM is one of those heroes where you want to stay kind of in the back lines of the fight. Casting this, stunning an enemy really quick. Maybe you'll get in there and Freezing Field and Glimmer yourself, and now you can walk around and cast spells again once you, especially once you buy the shard. But that's pretty much how you want to be playing CM, is sitting in the back, getting all of your spells off, but not feeding and dying. And these two abilities, or these two items, will help you get your spells off and survive more than like any other items in the game, and it will help your team. So I understand you want to be selfish, you want to get farm. CM does have a talent for 200 attack speed currently, so maybe you want to get selfish and go right click build, but I would say obviously don't do that if you can. Get these two items and be an effective support. So that's pretty much what her abilities do, and now we can take a look at how to play her in the game, and specifically in the laning stage. So now we're going to jump in here to a replay of solo playing Crystal Maiden. I just want to give you a few examples of what I was talking about before. So Crystal Maiden is a ranged hero. She can harass pretty well, so that's what he'll do here starting out, is just harass. Now, she doesn't do a ton of damage, but she, as being ranged, like I said, can harass pretty well, especially with a melee offlaner. Now, this is the perfect example of what I was telling you before, is that here she sees that range creep was dying and instantly nukes it with Crystal Nova and gets it on both of the enemy heroes. That is a really, really good use of Crystal Nova. It's extremely efficient to do that. And that's why you always want to be leveling Crystal Nova first, at least for now. I mean, unless they change the ability or something crazy happens. Crystal Nova is just so good because of that securing of the range creep and being able to harass both heroes at the same time if they're close to each other. So you see, in general, Now that they're pulling the creeps back, she uses her Crystal Nova again on both heroes to get that efficient damage in. So as we fast forward through the lane, we'll just see that she's harassing down the enemy 4 whenever she can. And Solo is pretty good, so he knows how to play Crystal Maiden and kind of is using her efficiently with those spells and everything. Now he's trying to stop the pull. Isn't successful, but we will see, now that he's level 2, and after this pull goes off, that he is able to bait the Shadow Shaman, who thinks he's pretty strong, into death here, because she's able to use her spells very effectively by first stunning or rooting, and then using her Crystal Nova. So let's just back up a second and show you this. So he's very good at using his spells effectively. So right there, he casts his Frostbite onto the Shadow Shaman, allows his Medusa to come over and click, while he also gets right clicks in, and then does not stack the stun or the root with the Crystal Nova. So as soon as, immediately after it's done, he casts the Crystal Nova, gets the damage in, and the full duration of the slow to allow him and his Medusa's carry to click the Shadow Shaman and get that kill in. So that's just some of the things that I wanted to show you here in the early laning stage. Obviously, pull when you can, get to that small camp, pull the big camp if you can, those kinds of things. And that is just general supporting, but that's basically how you play Crystal Maiden in the early game. So the next clip I want to show you is mid-game. So he's actually not even level 5 yet, but I really want to show you how to play Crystal Maiden effectively in Teamfights. So this is mid-game, but this still is the perfect example of what you want to do. He's hiding, he's not showing, he's staying behind. He walks up here, gets the initiation, and does not blow his spell until the very end there, where to secure the kill. Then he sees, okay, they've used all of their stuns. I'm going to walk in and just ult. And that was calculated because he knew, based on, you know, their spell cooldowns and all that stuff and the stuns that they have in general, he knew exactly, okay, he wasted RP, they've used all of their stuns, I can just walk in here for free and ult, and then their only play is to click me, but I have 20 armor now. So that was just the perfect team fight by Solo there. So let's back up a little bit and show you this whole thing. So he stays in fog, he walks up, he casts the root. Obviously, she's stunned in the duration. At the end there, uses her Crystal Nova, stays in back, notices the RP goes down, walks right in, and then instantly casts Freezing Field to try to secure these kills. It's just the perfect example of how you want to be playing CM. Stay on the outskirts, make sure that you're casting your abilities effectively, and then if you see, okay, the enemy has no stuns left, that's the perfect opportunity for you to run in and cast Freezing Field. And I think that's just a quintessential fighting representation or example there from Solo on the Crystal Maiden. So this next clip I want to show you, and this is probably the final clip, is just to show you how to be effective in team fights as well, even if you're not running in and casting your ult. Now this is a little bit later in the game, still pretty early, basically mid-game, but still, you want to see that she's hanging in the back, she's not showing, she's using her abilities, and then she immediately backs off because she doesn't want to get gone on. She's kind of ineffective now. She doesn't really have anything to contribute. She sees that, you know, okay, they're winning the fight, she can go back in. She's going to cast the abilities again once they're off cooldown, and you just see that Solo is being very, very effective here with his casting of spells because she is able to do a lot in team fights as long as she doesn't get gone on. Now, obviously, they're ganking there, those kinds of things. The enemy is caught off guard, but it's just kind of the perfect example. It seemed so easy. It seemed like there wasn't a big deal. But because he hung back, because he was able to cast his spells like 3 or 4 times in a team fight, it just allows him to have so much more impact in the game. And I think that's generally how you want to be playing CM throughout the entire game. I mean, we did see the perfect kind of team fight when you walk in and cast Freezing Field, and that's great, and I think that's something you should look for. But if that doesn't happen, you don't need to feel, or you shouldn't feel like you always need to get your ultimate off, because your other 2 abilities are good enough that if you sit in the back and use them, they're going to dish out a good amount of damage and be extremely annoying in fights. So that's generally, I think, how you need to play CM. Like I said before, playing supports, playing 5 positions, it's something that, you know, it's more just about the general role than it is about the hero. But with CM specifically, I think that is, those 2 examples are exactly what you want to be doing in the mid game or even later in fights. And what he did in the early game, in the laning stage, was also another perfect example as well. So I hope that helps you play a better CM, play a better 5 position support with this hero. If you have any questions, you can obviously leave a comment below, ask me any questions specifically about the 5 position or this hero in general. If you have a replay you want me to take a look at, as always, I'd be happy to do so. And like I said, as always, if you like the video, give a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, those kinds of things. That would really help. Obviously, I plan to be doing a guide for every hero, so if you like this guide, just let me know, and I'll see you in the next video.